Hello, my name is Sam, my pronouns are they, them, and welcome back to my office. Now, is this normally what I do and what I talk about on here? No. This comes from a writer, a reader, an editor who, more than anything, loves a good desk. And as someone with severe arthritis and carpal tunnel, I have arthritis throughout my spine, and I have it in my wrists, and I have carpal tunnel in my wrists too, so I'm all kinds of janky. And with that comes a hatred for all desks. And that brings us here to today's video, where I'm going to walk you through how I created this desk right here. This is a live edge standing desk that I made from scratch. I didn't make the standing desk portion, but we'll kind of go over everything as we can. I got inspiration from this from Etsy. I saw a listing for a live edge standing desk that was like over $600 or $700, and I just could not justify it. But once I saw it, my heart was a thuddin'. I could have nothing other than that. And I knew I wanted a standing desk. It was a necessity for me to work from home a little bit more because I need to be up and down all day. I cannot stay in one consistent position throughout the day or else I have massive flare-ups. So, why would you ask? Why wouldn't I just buy something cheap off Amazon like everyone else? Everyone else who's buying a standing desk for $100 with that crappy, like, I don't remember what it's called, the IKEA, like, kind of furniture. Because I'm bougie and I can't help myself. I'm bougie, but I'm broke. So, today, I will talk to you about cost, vaguely. I will talk to you about how I did it. I will talk to you about the products that I used and the things that I thought were necessary and the things I think you can live without. This kind of project is not as unattainable as you may think. Especially if you are like me, then you're just an amateur. I am not a professional woodworker, contractor, anything of the sort. My experience started when I was maybe 13 or 14, give or take. I was incredibly mentally ill. My grandfather, bless his heart, bless his patient heart, took one look at me and was like, oh, we need to do something. And he started teaching me woodworking because he is a kind and patient soul and no one else in this world could have put up with me in the way that he does. So the important thing to note when I'm walking you through this process is that I learned woodworking as make mistakes. Nothing has to be perfect. Make whatever mistakes. Everything can be corrected. Everything can be fixed. It's not that important. And that is how I learned woodworking. So if you are someone who is not okay with that mentality, this is not the video for you. I am not a perfectionist when it comes to woodworking. It is my one true hobby. I just do what I can with the knowledge that I have. I learn as I go. And if I panic and have questions, I just give my grandfather a ring. And I'm like, Dave, what the hell do I do? With that, I guess let's start off with some tools and products that I used. This is actually a fairly low tool and product project. So we have the live edge slab that I got. I live in Maine. I live in bumfuck nowhere, Maine. I drove even farther out into bumfuck nowhere, Maine to pick up a giant slab of, I think he said it was spalted maple, and it's got like little wormy holes in it, but I picked it up. I bought it for $140. I used maybe a half, maybe a third of that piece for this desk. I didn't want a huge desk, so $140, let's be generous, divided by half, so $70 for the tabletop itself. For the tabletop to create it, I ended up using just a hand saw. I tried to use a jigsaw, I tried to use a circular saw, I didn't have long enough blades, and honestly, I am of the mindset that you can do just about anything with a hand saw, as long as you are determined enough. And my hand saw, I bought it for maybe $10 a couple years ago, and it is my most used saw. I love that thing. It was cheap, it was like nothing, but it comes in handy more often than not. And that is what I used to cut this thing, because I hardcore struggled and I could not get any of my other saws to work because my blades were not big enough. So, honestly, if you want to do this project, you don't need to go out and buy a jigsaw or a circular saw or a table saw or anything. You can just use a like $10 hand saw. You're good to go. You can make it work. Any jagged crookedness can just be sanded out. It's not that big of a deal. This is for you. You're not a professional. From there, I ended up using 2 sanders. Do I think you have to use 2 sanders? No, absolutely not. I think that you can get away with just using an orbital sander for this and a chisel. You are going to need a chisel to like chip off some of the bark on the edge to bring out that nice live edge. You are going to need a chisel. Super cheap though. It's like nothing. I do recommend that you do not hand sand this. I think you need an orbital sander or a belt sander. So I used both an orbital sander and a belt sander. The orbital sander I used on the like edge. And if you want to get real precise with it, you can get like a foam sanding pad to kind of go with the grooves of everything really nicely. I didn't do that because I'm lazy. So that's what I used on the sides. And then I used a belt sander on the top, which was a gift from my grandfather because he funds all of my tools. Do I think that this is the most necessary tool in the world? No, not at all. Do I think that it was so incredibly helpful in every capacity? Yes. I could have never gotten such a nice, smooth, like fairly even surface without that. Now, if you want to not have to deal with most of that, if you don't want to have to even out the top, you can take pieces of wood to a planer. In Maine, we have like just guys who are like, if you have stuff that you need planing, just bring it to my shop, give me some cash, I'll run it through, we're good to go. I don't know if that's the case everywhere else, but if you want to go that route, that's also not an expensive route. It's a cheap, easy route as long as you can find like just some guy who has a planer. So you have different options. Your easiest option is just going to be an orbital sander. You can get one for like 50, 60 bucks. Not that big of a deal. It's something that you'll use constantly. If you do any projects, almost every project uses sanding. If you have a belt sander, it's a super helpful tool for the tabletop. If you don't want to deal with that, find a planer. None of it's a big deal. From there, I ended up taking just some polyacrylic. I'm gonna put the one that I use up here and the price of it because this can of polyacrylic has lasted me like 5 or 6 projects now, like 5 or 6 big projects now, and I always use a matte polyacrylic. Always. I did not stain this because I am obsessed with the actual grain of the wood and the coloring, and I just didn't want to hide any of it. I didn't think it was necessary. Now, in my piece, you will see that there's some indentations, some holes, stuff like that. This guy told me in advance there are some little wormy holes, whatever. The tabletop itself is not completely perfect, whatever. Not a big deal to me. And I did like 3 or 4 coats of polyacrylic on this. I didn't do any wood conditioner, I didn't do anything. I just did poly. Bam, slapped it on. Super easy. Not a big deal at all. Now, when it comes to the base was a Christmas present the base was a birthday present from my nanny off Amazon. And I will put the listing right here, and if the link is still active, I'll put the link down below. Because I actually really like this standing desk. So I ended up getting one with the 2 support bars, and it has like just under a 300-pound weight capacity. If you're doing something like this, you really want to make sure that you spend the money on the base because wood is heavy. And you want this thing to be able to go up and down, up and down, up and down for years to come. This is not something that you want to have to deal with, like taking off the top and replacing the base, and you don't want to have to do all of that. It's just a hassle. So I will link the one that I got. It has the 2 support bars, about a It was pretty easy to put together. It is definitely heavy, let me tell you that. So I did a stupid thing, and I put the top on when no one else was home. You should not do that. It's a really bad choice, but it's something that I did nonetheless. And all I needed were, I did not use the screws that the desk came with. I used screws from Home Depot. They were just like, I think like 1.5 inch screws. Something a little thicker, a little sturdier. I think it was like 3 or 4 on each side. Screwed it right in. Pre-drill your holes. Always pre-drill your holes. If you need a drill for this. I mean, you need a drill for everything. Everyone should have an electric drill. That's standard. If you don't have a drill, that should be your first tool that you ever invest in. And just get like a cheap, crappy drill. You don't need a fancy drill. Pre-drill your holes, and then screw in the screws, and then bam, there you go. I had my partner come and do cord management for me because I'm not good at cord management and she is. But other than that, there you go. You have a gorgeous custom standing desk. I love my desk. I use it every day. I think it's perfect in every capacity. I think that it is everything that I could have ever wanted. Are there things that I could have done better? I mean, yeah, but also I did this in like 24 hours, and that's including polyacrylic like drying time. So I started one afternoon, and then everything was finished by the next day. It wasn't a big, huge, hard project. It was messy. It required a fair bit of planning, but I have a beautiful custom desk that, while professionals might not look at and say, oh my god, that's the best thing I've ever seen, other readers and writers gawk at. They love my desk because it is gorgeous. And when you spend as much time as I do at your desk and in your office, you want something to feel gorgeous and custom and made just for you. The best part about this is I was able to pick what the width was. I was able to pick how long the desk I really wanted. I was able to prioritize what base I wanted. I was able to make every decision that I wanted to make for my own desk. And what did this really cost me out of pocket? For me, $140 for the piece of wood. That's it. If you were to do this on your own, if I didn't have the tools already, if I didn't have the supplies already on hand, if I didn't get my standing desk base as a gift. So we're looking at like $190 for the base, about $70 for the top. We're disregarding the other wood that I haven't used yet. So that brings me to about $260. Add in probably like $100, $120 for tools and polyacrylic and some extra screws, give or take. So you're looking at just under $400 if you don't have all of the supplies. But if you're sitting there and you have access to these tools, you have access to these supplies, like, you can just account for the wood and the base, and that's only like $260, which is not the most outrageous amount for a desk if you plan and save for it, and it's a priority for you. So here you go. Here's my desk. It's not perfect. The way that I did it isn't perfect, but it's beautiful, and I love it. And if this helps any of you even grab an idea that you can manage something like this on your own, great. I think woodworking and furniture building should be very accessible. Just remember, you're not a professional. It doesn't matter how wonky it is as long as it's functional. So, I hope that everyone's having a fantastic day, and if anyone has any questions, concerns, you can leave them in the comments. Be kind, be nice. I'm just a guy. I read a lot of books. I'm not a woodworker, but I'll do my best to answer any questions if anyone has them. So I hope that everyone is having the most fantastic day, and I will talk to y'all next time. Bye.